Hello, Frank. Thanks for having me on. My name is Neil Scherer. I'm an attorney, art dealer, and I've been a sports enthusiast since I can remember growing up in Mount Vernon, New York. Having a father who was a big sports fan certainly had an impact on me. Strangely, he grew up in Brooklyn, but he was a Yankee fan. So he pushed the Yankees upon us a little bit.
Okay.
I guess he just wasn't a good loser, and he liked winning World Series and losing Game 7. So, in any event, I still recall him teaching me the game in front of a TV. And even as a 6-year-old, he would explain the game to me by watching a game. And the game he chose, my first game, was the New York Giants playing the Washington Redskins in 1966. Believe it or not, the final score was 71-42. It's still the largest scored game in football history. So I imagine records were going to be part of my life right from the day I started liking sports. Of course, my father was winded trying to teach me about all the scoring going back and forth. You would have thought it was a basketball game. In any event, he also took me to a Yankee game, and I still, when I was in 1967, I still feel very fortunate to have seen Mickey Mantle's 513th home run over Bill Dillman of the Orioles. Another aspect of my life is I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York. And many people know from Denzel and Puff Daddy, but I know it more from the great sports players that have come there. In basketball, you have Gus Williams had great years with the Sonics, and his late brother, Ray Williams. There were also 2 other brothers who didn't make it, but were great high school players. My classmate, Scooter, and his younger brother, Rodney, who we won the 1977 state championship. And although I wasn't gifted, I was placed as a scorekeeper and statistician for that team, which was a lot of fun. Later, guys like Kevin Jones of West Virginia and Ben Gordon of Connecticut, and even Isaiah Cousins, who had a nice run with Oklahoma recently, all Mount Vernon kids. So I was really fortunate to be able to play with these kids after school and things like that. And I went on to the University of Wisconsin, went to law school. But I never lost my love of sports. And about in 2004 or so, the Yankees were up 3-0, as we know. They collapsed. And I had a good friend of mine, his father was a big Red Sox fan, and I nicely framed the ticket from Game 7 of the Yankees' loss, and I mailed it to this gentleman. I'm also an art dealer, and he's a great collector. And he contacted me back, and I'd written, "Congratulations, nobody deserves this victory more than you. Remember to enjoy it. It happens once every 86 years." So he got back to me and he said, "Gosh, Neil, this is the greatest gift I've ever received. Don't tell my wife, but it was up to me. I tossed the Hopper and Mondrian aside. Great artist, and put this in the place of honor it deserves." And I knew he was joking, but he wasn't completely joking.
But completely right.
And I said to myself, if I can do something a little bit different than normal memorabilia, I think I can, and by that I meant like telling these great stories and history. So a single ticket is great, a single program is great, a single autograph is great, and everybody should be happy about that. But I thought if I could put multiple items together, all original, all authenticated, and tell stories, I said I think I might have something a little bit different. So just to give you an example of one piece, Mickey Mantle, the great Mickey Mantle, hit 18 home runs in World Series play. So imagine a piece about 4 feet by 3 feet. Dead center, you have a great picture of a young Mickey Mantle signed by him. Surrounding that piece are the tickets from every World Series game Mantle hit a home run.
Right.
And underneath the ticket is the autograph of the pitcher who hit the home run off of.
Wow.
So that's right. One of the things you'll hear a lot is wow when people look at our pieces. So we really try to tell the story, and we think it's part of history. So that's great. And it's just, we call it, we had a tough time coining a name for it. And I think when you're unique, that is a problem. So what we do is we call it sports conversation art. Okay. And by that means is the fact is generally, like you had said before, wow, which is immediately connects the person to the piece. But when we find people talking to the pieces, strangers come up and start talking about it. We're mentioning what I saw Mantle do this, I saw this and that. So it's kind of interesting to watch the reactions to our pieces. And it's not just from the sports world, which was a given. I was sort of taken aback by how many of our fans are history lovers, mm-hmm. and even art lovers. We call it our triple play, sports, art, and history.
Well, it's one of the things we were talking about off the air is that we're all connected some kind of way to most everything. So, for example, if you're a Red Sox fan, let's just say, and you see that piece, that's going to make you think of something as well. You know,
That's correct.
As a kid growing up as an Indians fan, I'm like, those Yankees. But if I see that piece in Mantle, I'm going to think about, okay, why weren't the Indians that good? What was going on then? Oh, remember when Nettles went to the Yankees, or when Tiant went from, okay. And then all kind of rolls together. So, and like I said, there's that wow factor as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Mantle is, what I was surprised too was I had many people would come up to me and say, I hated the Yankees, but I love Mickey Mantle.
Right.
And, you know, you don't get that with a lot of players. You might get that with Michael Jordan. You might get that with Derek Jeter. But you have to be kind of special, and there's a charisma. And I think when Mantle came at bat, even with that famous limp of his, I think people sort of said, he must have come up, and when he came up, something special could happen. Now, I was born in 1960, so when I'm getting into the game, it's an old Mantle. It's an old Willie Mays.
Right.
We weren't seeing them at their prime, but their names were still special.
Right.
Names were still magical. And we try to bring that into our pieces. Now, for the Red Sox fans, Mantle may bring up some bad moments to them, but we actually did I've done a couple of museum shows, and one was in Waterbury, Connecticut, where our pieces were featured, and I was a curator. And what's happened as an art dealer, I worked with this museum many times, and for the heck of it, I said, hey, is this Yankee territory, Red Sox territory? And the director said to me, we're the dividing line between these two fan bases. And I immediately said, then why don't you do a show, the greatest rivalry in the history of sports?
Right.
Maybe the greatest rivalry in the history of America. Because
Right.
even the Hatfields and McCoys only lasted 36 years.
Right, you're right.
So anyway, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call, Neil, we think it's a great idea, but we're only going to do it if you're the curator. I'd never done a curator job before like that. But I loved the challenge. I took it on. Our show was supposed to only last about 6 months. It lasted 9 months. People were coming in from all over the country. And you know, the Red Sox and Yankees are pretty special history. And from the Yankees, we had the Don Larson perfect game there. We had the DiMaggio hitting streak, 56-game hitting streak. We had a lot of Babe Ruth, both as a Red Sox, and people sometimes forget how great a pitcher he is for Red Sox. We did something we call the Green Monster Heroes, where we did a piece with a part of the Green Monster, an actual part of the Green Monster, a number from the scoreboard, and we have the three great left fielders, Yastrzemski, Williams, and Rice.
Wow.
And, you know, so it was really, our pieces, I think, are quite special in that realm. You know, and also the most recent exhibition I did was here in New York at the Morris Jamel Museum. Now, they called me up, and, you know, New York's got so many pieces. I have to say I was ignorant. I didn't even know what the Morris Jamel Museum was. Well, it's the oldest museum, it's the oldest home in New York, and it was the home of Washington's headquarters during the Revolutionary War. And Lin Miranda of Hamilton fame spent 2 weeks there writing the play Hamilton because Aaron Burr lived there. So it was pretty interesting. Now, what's the connection for me at the Morris Jamel Museum? The Morris Jamel Museum happened to be across the street from the iconic Polo Grounds. So they called me up, Neil, can you put it together? So I, again, took a challenge. They gave me 7 months to do it. My pieces generally take 6 months to years to do. So I was fortunate that some of the pieces I had sold to my clients, they were nice enough to consign it for the show. Okay. And, but it was fun, you know. And another thing, we see how much of the past actually is current. For example, one of the greatest moment at the Polo Grounds was Mount Vernon's Ralph Branca, unfortunately giving up the home run to Bobby Thompson, the shot heard around the world. So in our piece, we have 2 great photos. One of Leo DeRocher, can't hug Bobby Thompson enough. Another photograph of Bobby Thompson being serenaded by the fans late into the night. Of course, we have the program signed by the 2 players. We have the tickets signed by the 2 players. Now, a lot of people forget that it was a 2 out of 3 playoff. It wasn't a 1-game playoffs. So they split the first 2 games, and Bobby Thompson hits a dramatic home run off of Ralph Branca. And the odd thing was that Thompson hit a home run off of Branca in game 1. So why did we bring Branca in? Anyway, why it's important is generally just talking about it at that as that is enough. But what happened right before the virus situation was the big sports talk was the Houston Astros sign stealing scandal. Well, when did the sign stealing scandal first erupt or happen? Was in 1951, during that particular summer, when the New York Giants used a telescope in dead center field. Leo DeRocher, who said nice guys finished last, probably figured nothing to lose. They were 13 and a half games out of first place August 1st. He knew this guy named Shemps, who was a utility player, but he apparently did the same thing for the Cubs when he played for the Cubs, said, I have a telescope. They make this elaborate buzzer system in dead center field where they're able to have a buzzer go into the bullpen. So if it was a fastball, they would buzz it once. If it was an off-speed pitch, buzz it twice. But, you still got to communicate it to the catcher. Right. So then Sally Vars, a backup catcher, would, based on how he would hold the towel, either would throw it up once or twice would indicate whether it's fastball or curve. So it's, you're thinking, unlike today where pitchers take 35, 40 seconds, sometimes throw a pitch, back then it was a faster game. They had to do this within like 15 to 16 seconds. So it was pretty interesting how it was. So I've always felt that if Major League Baseball, although it was very close to the best in 1951, they didn't talk about it. But by 2000, it had become pretty much well known that this didn't indeed occur. Maybe if they put an asterisk or something to that effect, showing that the World Series, that particular playoffs was tainted, maybe, just maybe, it would have had some effect on the Houston Astros players when they wanted to do it. Well, I don't know.
Well, the thing about all these things, this is my opinion only that I'm using, is that it's not illegal until it's illegal. So
it's illegal when you use technology, as far as I'm concerned. And the question is, was technology allowed back in 1951?
Well, that's it. And I think it has to be specified by the commissioner's office or whomever to say, you can't do what you did, or you can't do this anymore. And then when you go back and do something like that, then it's the whole thing with not to get on the soapbox, with the steroids thing and the amphetamines and all that. If it's not illegal, it's not illegal. Is it right or wrong? That's a whole nother story. But once you get to the point where you say, okay, we're going to punish you for something. Okay, let's use Barry Bonds as an example because that's the best example to use.
Yeah.
Okay, Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. Should Barry Bonds be in the Hall of Fame? That's a matter up for the sports writers. That's who votes on it. Doesn't matter what my opinion is. Doesn't matter what anyone else's opinion is. It's a matter of who votes for it. But the hypocrisy of the thing is, you voted him to be MVP 7 times. 2 or 3 of those times was after you're suspecting, or probably suspecting, hey, he's got a lot bigger. We'll still make him MVP. Well, now you can't go back in time and go, well, yeah, we made him MVP and almost unanimous, but we can't put him in the Hall of Fame. Same with Roger Clemens, the same basic thing. 7 Cy Youngs, but we voted for him for the Cy Young, but we didn't suspect anything then, and now he's not in the Hall of Fame. But it's the same scenario, that if it's something that's illegal, I have no problem with it. You broke the rules, But
you want to know, it's a good point. But sign stealing is an art form if done without technology. Right. For example, and there were some great players who were able to, based on the idiosyncrasies of the pitchers, pick up signs, and I think that's brilliant and should be commended. And I don't see any problem with that. That's just using cerebellum.
Sure.
But I think with technology, even back then, if it was, I think the fact that it was DeRocher too, who was known to be kind of a shady guy, hurts it. And also, from my point of view, and maybe I'm too naive or ignorant, I love the fact that baseball, the numbers mean more to me in baseball than any other sport. I don't know what the top scorer in the NBA is anymore. Maybe other than Will Chamberlain's year when he got 50 points a game. But other than that, do we ever care that the top scorer is 36.3 points a game or something like that? But in baseball, 714 is magical. 56 is magical. 755 with Aaron is magical. So for me, I'm probably on the air would vote against these guys, because I think that those numbers are important, and they take away from what the older players do, unless you could prove otherwise. So I'm in that way, but what I have found in my shows is that if you're like 50 and above, you generally are against the steroid players or the ones who've come out with. If you're under 30, they don't seem to care as much. That's what I'm finding. And then there's that gray area, 30 to 50, where it's a little mixed. So I think as time goes on, I'll be less and less surprised if Bonds and Clemens don't come in, because I think that the feeling is that these players still deserve to be in it. But I have a tough time myself.
Well, and you carried what you said a step further. Yeah, I'm a basketball guy, but I don't know what the magical numbers are. Is it 20,000 points? Is it 40,000 points?
Yeah.
2,000 assists? I don't know. You know, and the same thing with football. Is it 500 TDs? Is it 60,000 yards?
Yeah.
I don't know what the number is, but I know that it's 3,000 hits.
That's right.
I know it's 600 home runs. Yeah, you're approaching something special. You got 600 home runs.
Yeah.
You know?
Now those are great. And also with the Polo Grounds, it's interesting. When I did the show, what I recognize is that Ebbets Field in Brooklyn is given a lot of attention, and it should. It's the voice of summer with Jackie Robinson. Those guys. The Polo Grounds, for some reason, I think it's short shrift. And what's interesting about the Polo Grounds, it wasn't just the home of the New York Giant baseball team. It was a home of the New York Giant football team.
Right.
It was a home of the New York Jets. It was a home of the New York Mets. And the Yankees don't become the Yankees until their first year at the Polo Grounds in 1913. Right. I was amazed by that. Put that aside. Some of the greatest fights of all time. Dempsey Firpo took the Con Lewis. Floyd Patterson defeated Ingemar Johansson to regain his heavyweight championship. So the Polo Grounds, I didn't realize how much work I had when I took over that job to tell these stories. Now, another thing that was interesting is bringing it to current events. I did a piece on the 1938 New York Football Giants championship, and again, it was very interesting. When I put it together, I got the tickets from all the games. I got the programs from all the games. I got the autographs from the championship teams. I put the roster there because I like to show the size and what it is today and what it was then.
Right.
But what's interesting was they played teams called the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Brooklyn Dodger football teams. Now, people think of the NFL as some dynamic, powerful enterprise, which it is today. Back then, it was a fledgling league. Right. And we're picking back off of the more prominent baseball teams to try to get fan recognition and get more people there. What's interesting, the Maris bought the New York Giants in 1925 for the unbelievable sum of $500. It's worth $3 billion. Now, the $500 sounds as little as it sounds. They almost still went bankrupt their first year. It wasn't until the last game of the season when the Galloping Ghost Red Grange comes into town with the Bears. They get 70,000 people, and the Maris said maybe there is something there. What's also kind of fun about that piece was if you look at the sizes of the guys, there was a guy named Tarzan White from the University of Alabama, played guard at 5'9". Maybe Altuve could have played guard back then.
Yeah, right.
The only similarity between 1938 and 2020 was that if your name is Ox Perry, you're going to be an offensive guard. And there wasn't Ox Perry who played offensive guard then. But again, bringing it up to date, one of the unbelievable games that I looked into that was played at the Polo Grounds. By the way, your Ohio State football team played there, played NYU in 1926. But in 1930, it was sort of a depression-like times in New York, and the New York Football Giants wanted to, through the mayor, forget his name right now, it escapes me. Anyway, they did a charity football game in the middle of the season. Who does that? You couldn't do that. And they tried to get some pro teams, so they didn't want any part of it. So who did they play in 1930? Newt Rockne's all-star football team. In the middle of the season, basically. What happens is, also it's interesting, up to that point, college football, in many people's minds, was a superior sport, believe it or not. Right. So what happens is they play that game, and the New York Giants destroy it. I think it was 21-0, 22-0. And Newt Rockne says after the game, the great coach says, "I'm just happy my boys weren't hurt." Anyway, while I was giving that speech or that lecture to a group of people at the Morris Chanel Museum at that moment, what did we hear? We had heard the unbelievable report that Kobe Bryant had just been killed in a helicopter accident. Unbelievably, that was the game that was played at the Polo Grounds was Newt Rockney's last game to be played at the Polo Grounds. He would die shortly in a plane accident.
Right.
And it was unbelievable to think of these two. And believe it or not, it was as big, if not bigger, when Rockney went died. He was a historic figure in New York. Also, you have to add the fact that airplanes were into infancy, and they didn't want to hurt the public's. They didn't want to make the public more nervous than they were. So Hoover actually gave a speech, not just the president, not only complimenting the importance of Newt Rockney and giving him the proper respect, but also bringing up how safe the airline industry was. So I thought that was an interesting connection between the two, although very sad.
Well, it's funny how you get perspective on things when you look back in the past and you think, okay, we don't remember this happening this way, but this is how it happened then. And then, like you said, you're looking at the size of players on a roster for the Giants. You go, these guys couldn't play in junior high now. But that's besides the point. And when we look at how we transfer from era to era, that's not the important thing. It's how do they perform in that era, and then again, how does that relate to what we do now? So, like I said, the correlation between Newt Rockney and Kobe Bryant, very important. The correlation between the New York Football Giants and New York Baseball Giants and the Polo Grounds, you're looking at and go, wait a second. These other teams, and I didn't realize this, the other baseball teams had created football teams. What if we'd had, instead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Pirates football team? What if we had that? That's an interesting thing to think about, you know?
Yeah, well, it just shows you the connect. And by the way, often they were not real, although sometimes the owners owned both teams, many times they didn't. So I've always learned from a legal point of view, the New York Giants, even today, are often referred to as, and they play in New Jersey, by the way, but they're often referred today to the New York Football Giants.
Right.
You often hear that because that was how they were incorporated as that. Now, a couple of other interesting pieces. I could talk all day about my pieces, but during our last show, Don Larson passed away, and he had the one great day in World Series history. Or he was a nice pitcher, but he certainly, without that perfect game, I don't know if we ever talk about Don Larson.
Right.
So what do I have in my piece? We have a full ticket, which is very rare. Somebody did not go to that game. By the way, tickets back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s had so much character. Today, often you get the crummy little sheet of paper from StubHub or something, which it takes away. Because going to a game, the ticket in the program to me was always part of the deal. We have the program scored by the program. Now, who scored my program, or who signed it, I should say? Who signed my program? A guy named Ed Sullivan. So the question becomes, is it that Ed Sullivan? Or it's a common name. Anyway, we got photographic evidence of Ed Sullivan signing programs at the game. He was actually a sports writer at the game. And people just marvel at that. We also have, this to me was one of the most, by the way, in my pieces, some of my items could be very expensive, $5,000 or $10,000. But often, sometimes the piece, the image, or the or other items that are important or that capture the attention are not necessarily an expensive piece, but I just think add to the piece itself. For example, we have a photo of Don Larson signing a baseball after his perfect game to a gentleman named Walter O'Malley. Now, Walter O'Malley is the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Generally, that's called a humiliation, having your team lose a perfect game. There he is with a big smile on his face as he's getting the ball from Don Larson. I cannot see George Steinbrenner asking Pedro Martinez for his autograph, and Martinez had done that, or any other pitcher had embarrassed the Yankees. However, in retrospect, I thought about it. Maybe this is showing us a little bit of Walter O'Malley's savvy, business savvy. Although he breaks the hearts of the Brooklynites a few years later by moving his team out to Los Angeles, he's bringing – nobody could deny that the Los Angeles Dodgers is not one of the most profitable franchises in sports history. And Mr. O'Malley may have known the value of that ball he was getting for Don Larson, and just as well maybe given us a little insight of why he was moving the team to Los Angeles.
Well, and we'll touch on that in a second, but let me ask you this question, because you've brought up a lot of things. Is putting a piece together, is it, okay, I have this stuff and I'm going to put it in a piece, or it's now I have to become a history detective, and what I find is what's going to go in the piece? How do you come up with a full ticket to a game that everyone wants a full ticket to.
Well, it's more the latter. It's more like something comes to me. Where do I get my pieces? I get it anywhere from the garbage pail in front of your house to the top galleries in the country to auction houses to people contacting me. Also being an attorney, I do my due diligence to make sure the pieces are right. We use a guy named James Spence as our authenticator, who's used by Major League Baseball. So it's a whole process. And sometimes I have an idea of what I want to do, and I start, but sometimes something comes into you. For example, we'll get to this later. One of the pieces, sometimes, and I said sometimes these things take 6 months, sometimes they take years and years. I was gonna show this to you a little bit later, but I'll show it to you now. Here is a ticket that I was able to acquire. I've been working on for about 6 years, this project. And this ticket is, I think, from the greatest single game accomplishment in sports history. Would you have any idea what I'm referring to? Think of all sports.
Wilt's 100-point game?
You got it. Here's the ticket. Can you see it? I don't know.
Go more towards there you go.
Okay, that's a ticket. And where was the game played?
Hershey, Pennsylvania.
4,023 people came to that game or something like that. I was fortunate to buy this at an important auction. I think I got and these can go from anywhere from, I've seen them from like 8,500 to 25,000, just this ticket. So what I am doing to show you how, and by the way, for most people in the memorabilia, that's enough. I'm going to just flip it and make my money. And that's probably smarter, because what I'm doing is getting the program, getting the autograph from every player who played on the team from both teams. I've got the banner that was over Hershey Park. I'm getting articles. I've got a piece of the floor from Hershey Park. So you can see I am telling the story. And that's why I think it makes us different. Another thing is we're being commissioned. A guy came over to me and said, I love what you did, Neil, but my favorite player is Walter Payton. So he says, can you do Walter Payton? I said, sure. So I said, give me a week. I do the research I can, all the way from his beating the Jackson State to his final game with the Bears, him breaking different records during the thing, Jim Brown's record, his Super Bowl and all that team and all that stuff. So I give all my ideas. We come up with a price. Generally, my pieces are from $5,000 to over $100,000. Because, I mean, just a ring could be like $30,000 or $40,000 if they wanted that. But I would say my range is generally, and I want to be in a comfort area for my people. Generally, the price range for like $15,000 to $45,000. Generally, my pieces go for that. I can't afford my own pieces, by the way, just let you know. But I love them. And incidentally, when I first did this, my idea was to keep it myself. What happened was, I'm an art dealer, and I have a broker who, when she would sell her pieces, would take one of my art pieces and incorporate it in the room. So what happened was, one of the first pieces we did was a work on Roger Maris' 61 home runs, 61 home breaking Babe Ruth's record. We had the autograph of every pitcher in a home run off of, from Paul Foytak first to Jack Fisher 60th and Tracy Stallard 61st, and we have everybody else. So she put it there, and she said, Neil, I can't believe it, but nobody cared about the room or the apartment. They were just marveling at your piece. And she said, can I use this more? So they wanted to know if it was for sale and stuff like that. And that's when I started to think, maybe I have a little bit of a business of this. But I think because I love it so much, it has to be good enough for me. I think my clients appreciate that.
Now, okay, now I'm just dumbfounded. How do you, I mean, first of all, you have to make the list. And then you have to say, all right, that was in 1961.
Yes.
How do I find, obviously a lot of those people are no longer with us.
Most of them are.
Yeah. How do I find them and then find the autographed ball of maybe a pitcher who wasn't autographed ballable?
You know, it's a great question. That's part of being a detective, and that's part of the fun. It's also part of the frustration. Because a lot of times, we're fortunate sometimes to get these autographs. And by the way, quite a few of the autographs are not that expensive, but they're hard to find. Some of these guys probably pitch 1 year or 2 years. Sometimes we find out their address and we send it to a family member. Do you have a check from your uncle? Do you have this? Sometimes we're lucky and they're out there at auctions and things like that where we get them. But it is a time-consuming thing. And I think people recognize it. For example, you can look at our pieces in two ways. the memorabilia people will probably like to sort of categorize and itemize each item and come up with a value. Those generally will not be my buyers. However, the people that realize the value goes exponentially as you add more things, which is my argument, and the time I put into it and getting it authenticated,
right?
And the fact that if it's not one of a kind, it's likely to be pretty damn close. By the way, I don't know if you can see the piece behind me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just to let you know, that piece revolves around Roger Maris again and his 61 home runs. On the upper left-hand corner, if you could tell, that's Roger Maris as he hits home plate after his 60th home run, being greeted by the first black Yankee, Elston Howard. Imagine touching home plate at that time, knowing that you're tied with Babe Ruth. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The upper right corner is showing the bat being swung at the exact second he hits his 61st home run that breaks the record.
Unfortunately, I still have a bridge behind you, so.
What's that?
I said there's still a bridge behind you, not.
Can you see better?
No, it's still the bridge that was there to start with. So that's not Maris. Unless Maris is on a bridge.
Okay. Let me see. If I move it at all, can you see it?
Well, it's not that you're in the way. Is that the picture is a bridge? It's a bunch of clouds and a bridge. So. So
it's hard for me to figure this out. Oh.
Yeah.
Any event, just let you know more. I'll send you an image. You can always put.
Okay. Yeah. Then we'll do that. We'll do that.
On the upper right corner, in between the two photographs, is a photograph of the great Bambino with his actual autograph. Below it is a ticket from 1927 of the game Ruth hit his 60th home run.
Oh, my goodness.
That's right. Below that, now we're just getting started. We're just getting started on this piece. Below that are the programs of Maris's 60th home run and 61st home run scored by somebody at the game. And slightly above it, next to the programs are the tickets from his 60th and 61st. So we tell the story of Roger Maris breaking Babe Ruth. Now, if that's not enough, on the program of the 61st, who signs the program? Tracy Stallard, the pitcher, gave up the home run. And the gentleman, and Sal Durante, the gentleman who caught the ball. He got $6,000 and supposedly bought a house with it. So if that's not a one-of-a-kind piece, I don't know what is.
Sure.
And that tells, and everything's authenticated. And we're now, speaking of authentication, which you brought up with, we did a piece similar to the Mantle, 18 World Series home runs. We did one of Lou Gehrig and his 10 World Series home runs. And by the way, that's harder because we're talking about the 1920s as opposed to 1960s,
right,
or 50s. So anyway, he hit his first home run over Grover Cleveland Alexander in 1928. That's an expensive autograph. He hit it off of other Hall of Famers, a guy named Jesse Haynes and people like that, and Carl Hubble. So anyway, what I found interesting about that, but when I put it together, so in 1932, the famous game that Babe Ruth points to the outfield of a Charlie Root against the Cubs, that day Gehrig hit 2 home runs, but nobody talks about that.
Right. They call him Ruth, right.
Anyway, when I put that together, we bring everything to Jimmy Spence, whatever. He said, Neil, we got bad news. I go, what? The Lou Gehrig is not correct. It's not right. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So it was about a $10,000 hit, but I got my money back. I wasn't so upset about the loss of money because the gentleman I got it from, I thought was an honest mistake. And I gave him the authenticating letter so it's not, and everything went smooth. What I was more upset was the time I lost to get another one. So to get the correct one cost me another 6 months or so to put it together. Right. But it's a great image and we also, the imagery we use of Gehrig is very important. We don't want to use a sickly, ill Gehrig. We want to do a young, handsome Gehrig. And we did it. By the way, Gehrig he's phenomenal, just phenomenal. And remember, he played at Columbia University for a few years before that. And one of the things I do, we try to tell different stories in normal sports shows. For example, we do a discussion on cursive writing. If you think about it, I don't think anybody in sports world has ever done it. If you look at the autographs on our 1927 Yankee piece, by the way, we do a piece on the 1927 Yankee piece. We have the outfield of Musial, Combs, and Ruth. Then we have Dugan, Koenig, Lazari, Gehrig. Then we have the catchers, the pitchers. We have the all 4 tickets when they beat the Pirates. We have the program. But the autographs, I'm looking at the autographs one day and go, these are beautiful. And remember, a lot of these guys didn't go to college.
Right.
Benny Bengal, one of the backup college guys, went to Niagara. Earl Combs went to Eastern Kentucky. And Gehrig spent a few years at Columbia. But what I recognized was how important handwriting was back then.
Sure.
So even if they only got through 8th grade and 9th grade, they knew how to write.
Right.
Other than Joe Jackson, of course, and think of people like that.
Right.
But anyway, if you compare it later to the autographs of the 1950s and the 1960s, you start to see some of them are cool, like Mariano's cool, and some of them, but you're getting to see a sloppiness instead of an elegance that you saw there. We also did something that nobody's ever done. We put Lou Gehrig's autograph right next to Babe Ruth's. And not that I'm a handwriting expert, but if you do that, I advise everybody, you see the different personalities. Ruth, bold, dynamic. Gehrig, shy and elegant. You could almost feel the two different personalities by the handwriting. And I don't think anybody ever does that other than we do that. So I think that's why our show is so unique and hits home with sports, with art and history lovers, because we bring up things that nobody else would.
Well, you're dealing with things in a couple of different ways. One from passion, and that's what this show is about passion. That's the number one thing is talk to anybody about sports that has a passion for sports. So that's the number one thing we do. The second thing, you're doing it from a way of looking at it intelligently. Like, okay, let's discover what we need. Who thinks to go back and find a picture of Ed Sullivan signing autographs? Oh, huh? Well, we need to make sure this is legit. Now, this is the age before selfies.
Yes.
Where do you find that?
I got lucky, and a lot of it is luck. But it's luck that you create yourself by hours and hours and hours of research. Right. And I happened to put in, I think, in a Google search, Ed Sullivan, Don Larson, or something like that. There's one thing from law school that I still take as my research skills. And I couldn't believe it. There he was. And it's a great photo, too. And I'll send it to you so you can see him signing my piece. Also, getting back to nothing, technology, which we brought up a little bit with the Bobby Thompson home run. One of the things that's interesting is one of the interesting games that took place at the Polo Grounds was December 7, 1941, the day we're attacked at Pearl Harbor. Well, the New York Giant football team is playing the Brooklyn Dodger football team led by Ace Parker. And the Brooklyn Dodger team defeats the Giants pretty soundly, like 21-3 or something like that. Anyway, the interesting part about it is no one at the game knows we're at war until they go home that day.
Wow. Yeah.
Because today, with technology, with email, texting, everybody would know within 2 minutes of the kickoff. Remember, the attack in Pearl Harbor occurred around 6 o'clock, which would have been a.m. their time, which would have been close to kickoff New York time.
Right.
So what happened was, this is one of the most amazing things that happened to my show was we had a few people come to the show who had been to the Bobby Thompson home run game. This older gentleman named Mr. Davis, he couldn't get up to, one of the unfortunate things about the Marshall Mel Museum, because it's such an old place, it doesn't, and it's historic, doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be up to code with disability and all that, so there's no elevator or anything like that. However, he was so determined, this man, 3 of his best friends picked him up and brought him up to 3 flights to see the show, and then we put a chair for him. So he tells me all about the Bobby Thompson home run with his dad. So that I couldn't believe, but we got a bonus. Here, by the way, is another item I'm going to give you to look at. I have a ticket from the Giants playing the Brooklyn Dodger football game in 1941, that football game with 55,000 fans. Mr. Davis was at that game too. So anyway, wow. I asked the gentleman, what do you remember about it? He says it was a game we got killed. Yeah, obviously it was a Giant fan. But he said something, and I looked up. He said, at halftime, they said, Regiment 37, please report to headquarters. Or Regiment something like that. So although nobody knew what was going on at Pearl Harbor, there were hints. There were some hints out there. But how could you even think about that, even if you heard that? I mean, there's no way you're going to think of that.
But it is, I mean, it also says something about the times that you're going to be recalled during the middle of a game, and you go, game's over, got to go, you know.
You would have thought, like, today, almost certainly, you know, the whole stadium would know. It would whispers and all that stuff would happen within seconds. And people have the cell phone. I think my father in the 60s used to bring a transistor radio to hear the Giant football games and things like that.
But I'm not, even then, it's got to be broadcast, right?
But I thought it was, so again, we bring up so many different facets that other people might not bring up in most sports shows. And I think that's what resonates. By the way, just to let you know, if you have any connections, I sent a few ideas to some of the hotels and casinos in Las Vegas, because I think our show would be a natural out there and be benefit to our hosts too. What I've done in the past was, for example, when I got started and I didn't know what I was doing, my first two pieces, ABC News, it's about 8-9 years ago, was running a thing called Made in America, push Made in America, because it's good for the American employee, it's good for the American worker and all that stuff. So I went up and down Madison Avenue to the American-made companies. One of them happened to be a company called Steuben Glass, which many people think is a German company. It's actually out of Corning, New York. Okay. And I went in there and I told them about my idea, and it just so happened that Steuben Glass had signed a contract with Major League Baseball to get a glass bat, a glass ball for the MVP of the All-Star game.
Okay.
So the guy came over to me, and they had this incredible gallery space on 65th and Madison. I mean, as good as galleries, anything. And he said, Neil, if we give it to you for a month, can you fill it up? And I only had 1 or 2 pieces, and I was just starting. I said, absolutely. Anyway, I worked my ass off. I got it together. The show was supposed to, we called it, I think, Going, Gone, or something like that, which is the name of my company. And instead, it lasted 9 months. And because of that, we changed the name to Extra Idiots. But we were really great because we think, as from a business point of view, we bring new people into these stores. Right. The patrons are thrilled with it. Sometimes they buy our pieces, sometimes they don't. But in any event, they're most likely to buy our host pieces. And we've done this with 2 or 3 other companies. Steuben Glass, I mentioned. Thomas Moser Furniture Company, and even Bloomingdale's brought us in for a Father's Day event. Really? So between being a little entrepreneurial and also, but I think the fact that museums have picked up on us is really the best evidence of how special we are.
Well, now, actually, let me do my job for a second.
Sure. I'm sorry about that.
No, I'm being silly. The idea of, first of all, when you're commissioned for a piece,
yes,
what is the parameters, or what parameters are given to you usually, and then how do you say I have to exceed those or reach those? Or, for example, I come to you with a thing going, I want to do something for the 79 Pirates, the We Are Family thing.
Yeah,
and I give you something just that broad. Yeah. I don't say that it has to have Dave Parker. I don't say it has to have Willie Stargell or Kent DeColvey. I just give you that.
Yeah, but it will.
What happens to you? Okay, what goes on in your brain to go, well, all right, here's what I'm going to try and find.
Immediately, what I'm going to try to do is get the entire autographs of everybody who played on that team.
Okay.
I'm going to try to get all the World Series tickets, and because it's they played, I think, was it the Reds or they played somebody to in order to go to the World Series. They had to play an opening round.
I think they had to go through the Reds, yeah.
Yes, I would try to get tickets from all those games.
Okay.
Then I would try, because we could go 2 different routes. We could make it just the World Series, or we could do the Pittsburgh entire team. I probably would do the whole Pittsburgh team that particular year. So what I would try to do is find important tickets. For example, the pennant clinching ticket, opening day ticket. I would try to get something. I think Clemente got his 3,000th hit the last game of the season or something in that year. Am I right?
Well, that would have been the 72 series, the 72 season. Yeah.
70. No.
Yeah.
Was that okay? So 70.
Yeah.
So Clemente's not on the 79.
Right. Yeah. No.
Okay. So so you got a better break. Okay. So then I would probably I may do some fun stuff, like maybe they did like a record of We Are Family where the guys sang or something like that. Something to bring that into it.
That would have been the Sister Sledge song, right?
Yeah, I would try to do some. Although I remember I was a little upset in that series because you beat the Baltimore Orioles. The only reason why I was rooting for them was because Ken Singleton from my high school was on the Orioles at that particular time. But I would try to have some fun things. Now, what I do is, like I said, like I did with my Walter Payton piece, I give all my ideas. Now, also, because it's commissioned and it's a sold piece, the gentleman may want to have like a personal image of him and his father or him and his brother at a game that year.
Okay.
You know, they're buying it, they can have that. I'm fine with that. Sometimes if they ever wanted to sell it, sometimes that's difficult when you have your own personal thing, but this is for themselves. So that's fine. What I also do is early on, we come up with a number that's fine with them. They may say 20,000, 18,000, 22,000. Now, halfway through it, I may say, look, I'm up to 18,000. I have pretty much what I have. I'd like to add this particular ticket or this signed cap or something like that.
I found 5 more things than I planned.
22.5.
Right.
Are you willing to do that? And generally, they agree with that. So there is some modifications that can occur in it, but generally, we keep it pretty close to what the client wants.
Okay.
And now, it's fun. It's fun.
The opposite of that is when something pops into your head and you go, I'm going to do the Maris thing, or I'm going to. Is it the same process, or is it something that is because now you're finding stuff on your own, and unfortunately you're doing it because you want to do it, and you're looking at whatever rewards down the road. So what goes through your head then? Like, okay, I just had this idea. I'm looking at Maris. I'm going to pair that with Ruth, and then maybe I put that with McGuire and Bonds. I don't know. I mean, what?
Well, I have some. It's funny because right now I'll be doing the Don Larson Perfect Game. I'm thinking of doing. I could either, and I've done. By the way, I've done a Perfect Game for Sandy Koufax, and I also did a piece on Koufax 4 no-hitters in one piece, including the Perfect Game. So what I'm one of the things I'm thinking about is doing a piece maybe with Larson, Cone, and Wells, because they're the sort of the 3 amigos. Nobody's ever gonna have. No other Yankee will ever have a perfect game at the old Yankee Stadium other than those 3.
Right.
So so I have ideas like that I'm always working. The Chamberlain one thing I'm working on. What else am I working on? I'm working on the piece celebrating the 27 Yankee World Series championships. I'm doing a piece on the USA Hockey Championship in 1980.
Okay,
one that was just completed this week, and I'm waiting for photos, is Michael Phelps, Olympic gold medals in China. So we're working on a bunch of things. There's so many great stories out there.
Right.
And we feel, and what makes it so exciting is to see people react to them. And I think the way we tell them makes people, it's not, like I said, a single autograph is great, a single ticket is great. But the way we do it, I think people appreciate it and the amount of work we put in. One of the pieces that we did, we don't always do baseball cards, but we did a piece on Bucky Dent's traumatic home run in '78. I'm a freshman at the University of Wisconsin. And by the way, we were pretty bad football teams back then. I want you to know. Ohio State kicked our ass most of the time back then. But in any event, I was watching that game, and my 2 roommates were Red Sox fans, and Bucky Dent hits dramatic home run. So what did we do for that particular game? And incidentally, the interesting thing is it's probably the second most important playoff home run after Bobby Thompson's. So it connects with that. So what do? I have the autographs of every player who played on that team on their cards that year, the 78 cards. And what I did was, with the Yankees, interesting, Bob Lemon, who's the manager, replaced Billy Martin, who was fired for the 10,000th time during that year.
Right.
But his card is Indiana, is the Indians. And Jim Spencer played with the team, was also there. So I kept the cards uniform because I wanted to show that baseball and sports is always evolving. Very rarely does a team go 1 year to the next year. Very rarely, almost impossible, especially today. So I like that. And also, we have the ticket signed by Bucky Dent. We have a great, and this is one of the ones that's available, by the way. Most of our pieces are sold, but that's available. If you know how many fans out there that want that. We also have Don Zimmer is the manager. We always think of him as Joe Torre's bench coach, but he's the manager of the Red Sox.
Right.
And we have a nice write-up written by both Mike Torres, who gave the home run, and Bucky Dent himself. So it's a really cool piece. And, of course, we get the Bucky F and Dent. So he signs it Bucky F and Dent,
right.
which is what he's known for in Boston.
That's great.
That's pretty cool to have pieces like that. And it's very satisfying to see how people react to it. And people kept coming back to the show to see it. And we had a small extension, and hopefully we'll get back to a New York City show. One of the ideas that I'd like to do is a show in New York called Take Me to the Ball Game or something like that, where we show the growth of sports in New York with the growth of the subway system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I don't think people realize how important the subway system is
getting back to
sports in New York City. Take me out to the ball game. I can't believe that's what I mean. Take me out, which of course is nothing original, but the way I would do it would be original, because what I would do is have my pieces next to, let's say we're talking about the 55 Dodgers at Ebbets Field. Have my piece. I did a great piece on the 55 Dodgers where we had the autograph for every player. We had the tickets for all 7 against the Yankees. We even had, this is a cool thing, we even had a sheet showing where the players lived. And most of them were roommates because they weren't making money, and they lived very close to Ebbets Field.
Sure.
They didn't make money like today.
Right.
So what I would do is have next to the piece a photo of a vintage train or subway car from that time, and then have people write their stories of going to the Ebbets Field with their father or to the game. Because I think they all, because when you think about it, in New York anyway, I mean, some people drive. The first moment of that day, of that event, is when you set your foot inside a subway car going to the game. And I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it.
Could see the story of riding on the train with the players to the game.
Yes.
Or at least riding on the same train with the player. Yeah.
Sometimes that happens.
It's like, yeah. Well, like you said, they live
today. Once in a while, you hear a player does it, but it's more of a novelty. Back then, they did it because it was a normal way to do it. They
like you said, they didn't have any money and they lived that close, right? Wow. Okay.
So I'm always coming up with ideas, and I'd like to incorporate them. Hopefully, I think it'd be great to come and see you in Las Vegas. It would be great to bring my show out there. So.
Well, the concept this is why I know this works, because I remember the first time, and I was 13, I think maybe, we went to the Smithsonian Institute of Natural History or Natural Art or whatever the heck it was in D.C., going to visit my brother who was in the hospital at that point. And I realized that it's not about the one piece or the one thing. The thing like the Spirit of St. Louis, the Lindbergh plane. It wasn't just because you had the plane. It's because you had the plane and the story and the timeline and the graphics and the So if it was just the plane, you will walk up and go, hey, nice plane. And then you turn around and go someplace else. But it's like you have in one piece, 17 pieces.
Yes, right. Sometimes, and I think what's interesting is like you said, I hate to say so, the memorabilia in a sense can be a little bit boring. You see a ticket, let's make. But the way we do it, we think it's exciting. And memorabilia people come up to me and go, Neil, what you do is just too much work. They want to get their piece and flip it, and that's to go to the next thing.
Right.
And they're probably a lot smarter than me. So, memorabilia people will sell, 10,000 Derek Jeter autographs for $123. I'm really one of a kind. And although my pieces aren't inexpensive, I think they're special. But you know what? I was looking at some auctions recently. Luke Gehrig uniforms going for $300,000. Babe Ruth bats going for $1.5 million. And maybe and they could actually be cheap. So my pieces, which tell stories and you can actually show to your people, to your friends, your neighbors, at $30,000 to $50,000, I think they have a market.
But if you have a man cave, let's just say, and you have the Wilt Chamberlain ticket and it's stuck on the wall, people are going to come in, hey, that's pretty cool. Where's the dip? That's about the extent. I mean, it's a great piece. Don't get me wrong, that's fantastic. But you can only look at it for so long, and then you may say, well, I wasn't at the game, but Wilt Chamberlain was one of my favorite players, blah, 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 blah. And 5 minutes later, you've exhausted the conversation.
Yeah, that's why I think our piece.
Yeah, it's a conversation. Well, it's again, okay. What is it called again?
Sports conversation art.
Right, exactly.
I think that, it's a little bit long, but I think it kind of.
No, it's perfect.
Do you? I'm glad you like it.
It's perfect, yeah.
I had a tough time coming up with a term for that. Also, again, I come from the art world, and I don't come from the memorabilia world. I work with Hudson River School Art. I work from Albert Bierstedt, if you know, all the way to Basquiat. And I'm into modern contemporary art now. So our presentation is very important too. It's like a piece of art. Now, we've had some people who are kind of on the quiet side, don't like to be well known. They said, Neil, you kind of ruined our cover. Everybody wants to come see that piece in our neighborhood. We're the most popular house in the neighborhood. We don't want anybody to know that. We've had businesses who have rented our pieces and then ended up buying it. And, Neil, first of all, it's great for morale for the business. Second of all, we get more clients. They love it. And we're a big believer in win-win-win situations. Win for our guests, win for the patrons and visitors, and win for ourselves. So we think that's the perfect, we're the perfect guest.
Well, and as I've said any number of times, this is about passion. And obviously you have passion for what you're doing. So Neil, okay, do me a favor. Give us all the contact information. Where can we find you? Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. And I'll make sure we type it up and everything as well.
No, thank you, first of all, for having me on, Frank. And also, in the future, hopefully we can just talk about one piece for the whole time. I know you're an Ohio State guy. We've done 4 or 5 Ohio State pieces. We could do a whole Ohio State segment if you like. Now, I have a lot of strengths. One of them is not social media, so I'm getting better. Excuse me, my website is goinggonesports.com.
Okay.
Which needs, I'm hopefully gonna update it. It's been a while. I could also be found on LinkedIn. I can be found on Facebook under Neil Scherer. I'm working on Instagram now, but I'm kind of weak on that. But it seems like we're growing more and more with some great shows like yourselves, plus some articles written about us, and if you ever want a piece for yourself, your best friend, it has to be your best friend. You can't give these to just an average friend. You have to get best friend. Or if you want to give it to an employee of yours, something special, please contact us. We love working with you. I think it's a lot of fun. What we do is and as long as you know it's not going to be done in a week, what we like to do is we, after every 4 weeks to 6 weeks, we call our clients and say where we are. And they love, I think, being part of the process. We love working on new things. So we're doing that. And also, if you do contact me, the best way to contact me directly is njsart@msn.com. Then I would be more than happy to send you some of the video tours from our museum shows, and you can get a good view of our pieces that we did and a little bit more of the show itself. Okay.
Neil, thank you very much. This has been
great talking to you.
Wow, this has been great. And like I said, it's the passion and the expertise as well. So thank you very much.
I mean, we only did about 10% of my items, and I think that's so I don't want to tire you out. It's just early in the day.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great day.
You too.